Let's see. There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another week of Blueprint for Peak Performance. I am Brandi Smith. I am the founder of Perfect 10 Physical Therapy and Performance Training, Perfect 10 PT Academy, which is online courses for parents, coaches, and athletes. And for those of you that don't know me and are new, I'm a former collegiate gymnast on 2 national championship teams in college. And I had my own battles with fear and with nutrition and injuries, and also my identity with the sport of gymnastics and my recovery outside of the sport of gymnastics. It took me a while to go back to watch college gymnastics. So I'm excited to have Teresa here. I'll introduce her in just a moment, but I'm really excited because as part of my process, it was a process to learn who I really was outside the sport of gymnastics. And I'm excited because we're going to talk today about the idea of like, well, what if we prepared everybody that they're not actually the sport that they're playing, and that there's more things to life than gymnastics. Go ahead and accept a panelist for those who are coming in. So I'm really excited to have Teresa here. It's going to be a great session. I work with athletes all the way, and so does Teresa, from recreational all the way up to Olympic level athletes. And we do these every week to help coaches and parents get on the same page, because I honestly believe that we all are here to support our athletes, and we need to be on the same page to do that. And so I love having you guys here, and I think we'll have a mix. So if you can, while I'm introducing Teresa, drop in the chat whether you're a parent, a coach, what level athletes you either coach or athletes that you have as a parent. And kind of the way we kind of know who all is with us today. That'll help Teresa and I, guide where we're going with this. And so go ahead and drop it in the chat for me, whether you're a parent, a parent or a coach. I don't think we have any athletes. Most everyone's headed back to school. I mean, yeah, everybody's headed back to school right now. And let me know if you're both. And then, yeah, I love it. The level that you are as well. I'm going to try to pin you, Teresa, but there it is. Awesome. There we go. All right. So I'm super excited to have Theresa Gillespie here. And she is a former collegiate gymnast as well as former alternate on the 1996 Olympic team, and an amazing gymnast, an amazing human who's had her own journey. And I'm excited. I'm going to let Teresa kind of talk to you guys, but she does a bunch of mindful, how do you want to put what I'm going to let you put words around it, because what you do is of course very mindful as far as, but it's more than just mental toughness, quote unquote, people might say. So Teresa, if you will, come on in and explain, tell them a little bit more about who you are. And we do have people piping in live on YouTube. We also have people catching the recording that signed up that weren't able to make it. But come on in and kind of introduce yourself and what it is you do these days. And then we're going to head into, so our topic for today, you guys, is training, keeping in mind life after sports. So what does that look like to start with, not just trying to deal with it after the fact? So Teresa, come on in.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me here, Brandi. It's good to see you all. Can you hear me okay? It seems like everything's okay. Okay. Yeah, my name is Theresa Kulikowski Gillespie. I'm a mindfulness meditation teacher and also a functional medicine physician assistant. So I do a lot with holistic health. And as Brandi said, the first half of my life was dedicated to gymnastics. And I can honestly say it was my first love, and it was probably the hardest thing I ever had to transition out of. And so, this topic of transitioning out of sport is really near and dear to my heart. And I think it is a topic that's being discussed more as athletes like Michael Phelps and these high-level athletes are coming out and talking about how hard it really was for them. But we have a long way to go. And so what I'm going to talk about today is actually, should I share my slides, or can I do that, or should I just talk from them?
No, let me let you share. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Before we go in though, I'm excited. This is exciting because we have 2 parents in here that are level 2 gymnast and a level 3 gymnast. So I'm really excited. Oh, it says level 3 gymnast training level 6. So we have a level 3 training 6 and a level 2 gymnast, both parents. And then we also have a gym owner and coach who trains, everything from preschool up to Excel, and some lower level DP kids. So
Mhm.
that's all who we have coming in. Let me give you access. So you should be able to share now your screen, and we'll have other people popping in as we go.
Okay. Yeah. And if there are any questions along the way, I mean, this can be conversational, right? So if there are
Yeah,
questions, feel free to pop it in the chat and I'm happy
yeah,
to answer as
we
we
love to
go.
have interactions because we want to help you guys with the concerns you have with your athletes, and maybe even have struggles yourself. As a coach and as a former gymnast, I coached at one point. This was definitely a big struggle. It's a process to get through. I think
Mhm.
we're doing better at it, but again, I think we're still at the very infant phases of it, the very infancy of people gaining awareness of this. Are you able to
Yeah,
find the screen share?
I think so. It's probably, I just need to go into
Oh, you've shared your entire desktop. If you want to just share your
oh,
If you want to exit, stop screen share for a second. If you make sure that your presentation's open, and then when you go to screen share, you'll pick the image that's the presentation only. Yep,
that,
there you go. Yep.
so you can see that and me still, hopefully.
Yes, and I know you can't see the chat now because you did that with the full presentation, so I'll follow the chat for you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so let's talk about how do we nurture and train our athletes as they are competing and performing, so that we are encouraging them to just know that who they are is more than their athletic accomplishment. And then when they're done doing gymnastics, of course, the transition is going to be hard. I'm not here today to say that this is going to be an easy transition. Um, but just so that they know that who they are is so much more than anything that they accomplish in sport. So let's see if I can. And there's just a little bit more about me, mindfulness meditation teacher, former gymnast, and I'm going to share a bit of my story, because I think it helps when we talk about this, like if the more people can share their story, share their struggles, share the things that worked for them, the more we can just have this open conversation and it doesn't have to be this taboo topic. So I'm going to share my story and then we're going to talk about why is this so hard? And this isn't just from sports. So you as parents and coaches, I'm sure you've had things in your life that you've had to leave behind that really identified, like you identified with it. This was who I am, and then you had to leave it. So I'm talking about sport, but it really does extrapolate to different things in our lives that are just important to us. So we'll talk about why it's so hard. And then I want to introduce a practice. As I said, I'm a mindfulness meditation teacher. And so we're going to bring in a practice called RAIN, and it brings in mindfulness and some compassion. And it is good for us as parents and coaches, and something that we can teach our athletes as they navigate the ups and downs of this transitional period. And then finally, we'll talk about just ways that we can support. So my personal story, I'll give you a little bit of background. So I grew up in a military family and my dad was stationed over in Germany. My older sister was in gymnastics and I kept running in on her classes. I was only 2.5 years old. She was like 4.5, and you had to be 3 to start. And I just kept running in on her classes. And finally, they're like, just let her start. And so it was by far like my whole life was committed to gymnastics at that point in time. Lived in my leotard, slept in my leotard. I had grips on my hands all the time, even though my hands were too small to really use them on bars. And then we moved back to the States and in 1984 watched Mary Lou Retton win the Olympics. So I don't know if any of you were alive during that time. I don't know the age. Okay. Yeah, Brandi, you were.
I had the Mary Lou leotard. I
Me
had the red, white
too.
leotard, and it was the long sleeve, right? I
Yes.
I live in Texas. It's 100 and something degrees in the summer. Right?
Oh.
Favorite leotard. I wore it hot or cold. I didn't matter how hot I was wearing that leotard because yeah. I mean, so at that point, 84, I was 3. I had just started gymnastics, And so
Okay.
by 84, 84, I just watched her win. And by 4 years old, I was like, you could not take that Leo off of me. And I was so excited because our team colors were red, white, and blue. So I was excited to get into the team as soon as possible because I could wear a Leo similar to Mary Lou's. Like it was like,
Yes. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so we're about the same age then. Yeah, and same thing. Like I watched that and just said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to win the Olympics. I didn't want to just go to the Olympics. I wanted to win the Olympics. And I had talent and I had the drive. And fast forward 12 years of the 1996 Olympic trials, I made it to the trials and I actually made the team. I was sixth of seven, but there were two athletes who petitioned and it bumped me down to eighth. So I was that like never sought after alternate spot. It was very so close yet so far away kind of a thing. So I struggled, but in that moment, I had made up my mind, okay, I'm going to go for the 2000 Olympics. I just have to do this. And then I was training for nationals the next year, tore the ACL in my knee. And then I just kind of thought, well, maybe the Olympics isn't in the cards for me. Let me try to pursue college. And so I accepted a full ride scholarship to compete at the University of Utah. And had a breakout year my freshman year where I won NCAAs, then the all around and beam and then I thought, well, maybe I still can go for 2000. So like that Olympic dream kept bubbling up and so I then decided, okay, I'm going to do both. Not a lot of us were doing that back then. It's more common now to do college and elite, but it was kind of rare back then. Um, so I guess, yeah, fast forward to the next year, it's 2000 and I'm three meets into the season and I tear the other ACL in my knee doing vault at LSU. So it just, yeah, my career was filled with very high highs and very low lows. And I graduated in 2002 and I had this opportunity to take a fifth year. If you get injured during your college career, you have an opportunity to do a fifth year. And so I was grappling with this because I had already graduated from college. I went out on a high note. I was still healthy. And I remember journaling, I think I'm ready to be done. And I'm like, maybe I could go over and visit my sister in Germany and live with her. She was in the army. And it was a very hard decision. But for whatever reason, I think there was some guilt kind of feeling like, okay, I have this opportunity, I have to take it. And so I took my fifth year and it was just plagued with injury. I was burned out on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically. I had injury after injury, broke my finger, found a stress fracture in my back, and I was falling apart. And it just took everything to get back into the gym every day. And I only competed bars and beam because of the injuries. And then everything came to a head. We made the Super Six at NCAA's, and I was doing something on bars, and I tore the rotator cuff in my shoulder. And so that was how my 21-year gymnastics career ended. And needless to say, it was devastating, and I really didn't know what I was feeling. I was depressed, I was despairing. I was regretting, kind of like maybe I shouldn't have done this. I had all these emotions going on and I didn't know how to process it all. And there was never a conversation around, well, this makes sense. I mean, this was your life, this was your identity, and now it's gone. Like overnight, it's gone. And so yeah, this is where I, 10 or 20 years later, had to process this. And this is why I do the work that I do, because I think we need to have the conversations throughout the lifetime of the athlete. There are things we can do as we're nurturing our athletes to make this transition maybe a little bit more graceful and a little bit less painful. So, any questions, anything there?
I'm just grateful that you're bringing this topic up. I remember we were at the USAG Collegiate National Championships hosted at TW, and there were seven seniors going for our seventh national championship title through the USAG Collegiates. And I remember we won, and it was so exciting. And it was seven seniors, right? So we win, super excited. But you want to guess who like did not want to leave the gym?
The
Like all
senior.
seven of us. I remember we meandered, we lingered, we took pictures, we stayed on the equipment. I just remembered, I can't speak for them, but I just remember going, I just had this dreadful feeling of what's going to happen when I walk out that other door. Like I was like,
Mm.
and I already was into PT school. Like I had that same moment where it was like, do I apply to PT school or do I, because I had one more year eligibility. And
Oh,
I had
wow.
just determined I'd finally had my very first season, no pain. I had had surgery before my freshman year, and then I had another surgery before my senior year. In the July of my senior year, I had surgery on both my legs, and that senior year was my first year in college with no pain. So the first year to compete, no pain, and I competed on the two events I wanted to compete. I started on them, beam and vault, and I just remember like when that meet was over, I just was like, I remember this internal dread, like what's going to happen. And I remember coming up to the crossroad, it was the hardest decision, but honestly, it was a financial decision because the scholarship that I got for gymnastics was not a full ride at Texas Women's University. Like it's a D2 school, not D1, right? So like we didn't have full rides really. And so I was like, I only had the scholarship money I had, and my grandparents said they would help me with a little bit of the alternative that they were helping with just for 4 years. So it boiled down to like, I don't think I have the money. Like, could I come up with enough money to make the balance right through academics? And I had a 4.0, so I could get academic scholarships, but it boiled down to I was like I think what pushed me over the edge to not go back was finances, but there was a piece of me that was like, you're done. Like you're feeling good. And I think my body and brain was done, right?
Yeah.
And so I finally made that very hard decision to not return. But I still in the back of my mind kept going, you could still, like it was kind of still there. And
Yeah.
I just remember like I knew I was already into the PT school I desired. I was already like set to start like unfortunately like a few weeks after graduation, that was when the program started. And I just remember like I don't know what's going to be like on the other side.
Yeah.
Like because your whole life, like as soon as I open that gym door, it's like there goes my schedule, right? Because championships has happened, so it's like there's no training. Like they let some open gym time here or there or whatever. I remember as a senior, several of us went back to open gym because like we why were we going back? We weren't training for anything, but it was just this idea of like, what else do I do? Like this is
Yes.
my time that I came to the gym, so I'm just gonna go to the gym and hang out with my gymnastics friends. Like everything was evolving around gymnastics, like your structure, your emotional support, your social support, everything. And I just remember going like, it was so scared to like walk
Yeah.
out and just go, what's next? Because I didn't know what was, because my identity, no one spent time talking to us about this. That, hey, Brand, I
Yes.
was in this small town, Smithfield, Texas, where I was blessed. So with Teresa, I was not an Olympic gymnast and never on that track. So I got a chance in a small town to be a cheerleader, which meant that the whole town watched me tumble down the whole football field. To this day, I can go back to that town and that's the first thing they say to me. Oh, you're the
Interesting.
gymnast. You're the
A
gymnast. You used to
gymnast.
tumble down the
Yes.
football field. And
Yes.
because there wasn't very many of us in that area, because it's a small town, I drove away for practice, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and they still always followed up. I'm 44, so they followed up with, "Do you still do it?" Like it's that much of your identity,
They
right?
don't know. Well, and that's interesting. It's a good segue
Yeah.
into like, and this is by no means a comprehensive list. I'm sure you, as parents and coaches, can think of lots of other reasons. Like maybe you've had a child or an athlete go through this, and you can think, oh, this is what made it really hard for this kid. Every kid is different, but these are some reasons. And like what you were talking about, the identity. And we can have this identity foreclosure kind of feeling of when we start cheer and dance and gymnastics when we're 2, 3, 4 years old, and people know you as the gymnast. I was always, oh, you're Teresa the gymnast. You're Teresa the gymnast. And I'm sure you were Brandy the gymnast. And that stays with you. And so you can kind of become myopic in your view of, oh, this is who I am then. And you don't entertain other identities. And sometimes when we're really dedicated to it, we're not dating and we're not socializing outside of the gym or we don't do other sports. And I'm not saying this because this is bad. I think it is an absolute honor to be able to dedicate yourself to something. I think it's special and I would do it again. I would, of course, do it differently though, because I think it's important to, yes, have these dreams and have these goals and have this identity while also knowing that there are other aspects to you that are important, that are lovable, that are worthy. And this is where coaches and parents are really important and critical in nurturing those other things, those other aspects of kids. And so often,
Really
like,
quickly before
oh
you move
yeah,
on, because there was already a comment in the chat. So
oh sure,
Katie's the one that has a level 2 gymnast, and she said she's already having difficulty with the other sports or activities, like trying to
yeah.
balance that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think at some point a kid has to choose. If they really want to dedicate themselves to gymnastics, you have to make a choice to do that. And I think it's a family decision. It's something that you have to take seriously. And if they make that choice, you have to be even more intentional around having the conversations of your gymnastics is amazing and you're such a good teammate and you're such a good friend and you're so kind. And like you really have to nurture all aspects of who they are. So, yeah, that's
I
interesting
think there's
priority.
ability too, though, for coaches and parents, though, with Excel gymnastics and other, like it's a matter of what level they want to head to, like what
Yeah.
level of commitment they want. Yeah, so Jasmine's already saying as well, she's like having to choose is so hard. Yeah, her daughter also has had to do some choosing recently. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'd be curious how you guys are navigating that process. I think having the communication and the language around it is a big part of the struggle. Like just being able to have the conversation is a step in the right direction. And it sounds like you guys are kind of there. So if you want to share how you're, oh, I see. Actually, I think I
Yeah.
can see the chat.
Jasmine, if you want, she can unmute if that's okay.
Yeah.
Jasmine said we had to find some compromise. Jasmine, do you want to speak in about how you guys found compromise?
I mean, I can, but I'm at the gym right now and it's kind of loud. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you well. Yeah.
So my daughter Jade is choosing between dance and gymnastics. So currently our compromise, but we've also had some issues around gymnastics, is that we're doing only privates for gymnastics. So if we choose to go back to competition, we're not going to have any
You're not going to have any what?
loss of skills or anything.
Oh, that's a good. Okay, so right now you're kind of choosing to perform in dance, but if she wants to go back to gymnastics, that's an
Gym-
option.
Gymnastics is her choice. It's just not
Oh,
healthy for us right now.
oh, I see. Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're keeping the private sessions, which is helping keep the skills up and fulfilling the desire for gymnastics while she's doing dance and
yeah.
fulfilling the performance desire.
Okay. Yeah, they're hard decisions. They really, really are. And regardless of what you end up doing, whether it's multiple sports or you're focusing on one, it is easy for that sense of self to be tied to the accomplishment, especially in these judged sports like dance and cheer and gymnastics. And from a very young age, we learn how to kind of not give our power away, but in a sense, we're relying on this external validation to feel good about ourselves. What's my score? What did the judge say? And I mean, we can internalize that, and over time, it can lead to unhealthy patterns. So we might tend to doubt ourselves and our own sense of worth without knowing how other people are thinking of us. So, again, like in the next little section, we're going to talk about how to nurture the athlete as they're going through all of this so that they know how to turn inward for their sense of validation, along with having to be judged. And that's just the nature of the sports that we do. There's really no getting around that part of it.
One of the comments in from Katie, which is the level 2 gymnast, she said, "We've just really made Peyton feel that her growth is noticed. She has a hard time when she feels she isn't up to par as a 7-year-old." And so she
Mm,
said, so the those are the days that she wants something else. Like those are the days she's looking to try to go to outside of gymnastics, I'm guessing is what she's saying.
yeah.
Um, but they're trying to help her just, feel that she's noticed her growth, that she's been growing in the sport or growing as a human.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I always say like who we are is not our athletics, but it informs our athletics. So the drive and the determination and the work ethic, all of those things, like they make up who we are and they inform our athletics, which is really great. And we just have to take that backward step of like you're doing, nurturing the growth as a human. So I think it's great that you guys are emphasizing that. And then as you were talking about, Brandy, when you're done with the sport, that lack of social support, I mean, your teammates are your sisters or brothers or whatever, and your coaches are there with you sometimes more than your parents. And at the college level, you might have sports psychologists and physical therapists. I mean, you've got this robust support network. And then again, it can feel like it's pulled out from underneath you overnight. Um, and there is oftentimes just a lack of preparation for the transition. So all the more reason that we have these webinars like this, and parents and coaches are informed and then they talk to their athletes about it. And then like what you're saying too, Brandy, the loss of structure and routine. I mean, we're used to sometimes having our whole year planned out, or 4 years, like this is what I'm going to do in this competition, and then I'm going to try for this one. And then we don't have that anymore, and it can feel very, very unsettling. And then this final part here, this is just something that I witnessed as an athlete, and I think things are getting better, but there were several gymnasts who had coaches that didn't honor their voice. And so when you're kind of raised in that environment and then you no longer have that environment, you're kind of like, well, what do I stand for? What are my opinions on things? So, I mean, just you guys being here makes me know that you're not like that. Um, but just being aware that there can be tendencies for in these sports of gymnastics and dance and cheer to kind of suppress one's own needs at times to please the judge or to please the coach. And so we just have to be conscientious of that. Anything else you want to add here? Just, what makes the transition hard, or what have you guys witnessed in yourself or others?
You guys are welcome to unmute or write in the chat if you'll have any other things you've been struggling with or you've noticed.
And I think it's just important to remember that this isn't anybody's fault. Like this process is just, it can be really hard for people, even if they are prepared for it, even if they do have the tools, and it makes it more manageable and potentially a time of growth as opposed to just complete despair. So, we don't have to do this alone. Yeah, Katie.
This is Katie, Peyton's mom, the level 2 gymnast. I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Hmm.
Okay. No, just I think you're kind of going into like your topics are kind of gonna be what I'm wanting to hear. But with Peyton, I kind of touched on it. Her thing is she's come so far, and she gets kind of emotional in the sense of she has her weakness is bars. Okay. So she's on level 2. There's 4 of them on the level 2 team. All 3 of them can mount themselves. She's struggling. And so when she gets to the bars, she starts to have those moments of, Mommy, my tummy hurts. Mommy, this. Mommy, I'm done with gymnastics. When in fact, it's just something she's got to work on. Now we've gotten bars at home now, so we're working on her at home, but it's that emotional sense of it that I just don't know. We've had all the encouraging talks and the uplifting, and the coaches have said things, and she's had her first in-house meet and she did great. So it's just getting that emotional sense, that mindfulness of you actually are good, you're just only 7, baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're going to be touching on that here soon, and so that's where I think a lot of the communication between them is where we need help on.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what we're kind of going to be talking about is awareness of emotions. Did you have something, Brandi?
Before we head in, yeah, there's one more in the chat. Jasmine was
Sure.
saying we're struggling, but in a different way. I'm noticing that the lack of hours has created, because they're in the in between right now, right? They're just doing the privates. We're struggling, but in a different way. I'm noticing that the lack of hours has created a deficit of sensory input. She said, my daughter is on the spectrum and she's struggling because she says she doesn't feel like the same person anymore. She isn't cognitive of it being a sensory issue. I totally understand what you're saying, Jasmine, on the sensory side of things, because I also know your daughter. Her daughter does really well with the amount of sensory input she got from training so many hours at the gym. I think they trained almost 20 hours or something like that, really close. I think it was maybe 16 to 20 hours. But that amount of stimulus, and now she's doing dance, and dance is not quite as much of a stimulus. So they're struggling with that right now.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And I
20
would
hours.
imagine.
Yeah, Jasmine said it's 20 hours. This was a level 3. No, level 4 training 6. 20 hours, yeah.
And then how many hours now?
How many hours are you in dance now, Jasmine? And then y'all plus the privates. How many hours does it add up to be in the week? Just thinking. Dance is more hours, about 25. Really? Dance is
Just talk.
25.
I'll talk. She's in a pre-professional team for dance. It's more hours. That's just not the same. They do a lot more like technique and things, but it's like a lot of bar work, like ballet bar.
She's also not getting upside down like she was before, though.
But acro, she only does like 3 hours a week.
Yeah, so she's not getting upside down as much for sensory, and she's not bouncing as much either for sensory input for her.
Right.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think just being able, and I don't know, kids are kids and they don't have the emotional maturity that we do, but we can model it. And I think if we can work on these things as parents and coaches, then we model it and we can teach the kids over the lifetime of their performance and their time as an athlete. And I'm listing here emotions that might arise as they're transitioning, but you guys are going through a transition right now. Like you're making this transition of you're not doing gym all the time, you're doing dance all the time, and it's a different environment. And so even if this isn't the ultimate transition out of sport, you're going through transitions while you're still an athlete. So and I think just having words to go with the emotions can sometimes be helpful. In the mindfulness community, we say name it to tame it, just because when we can use our prefrontal cortex and just say, oh, this is fear, we just get a little bit of a different relationship to it. It doesn't flood us. We can feel it, we can relate to it, but it doesn't have to overtake us. And so I think these are just some of the emotions, like in the ultimate transition, there might be relief that you're done, and there might also be immense amount of anxiety because you don't know what's to come. There might be sadness and there might be joy, there might be guilt and there might be pride. And how do we hold space for these seemingly paradoxical emotions that are arising? And then how do we talk to our young kids about it? I think that's the language, I'm oftentimes thinking of the transition for older kids, so they might have the language, but when we're working with younger kids, I think a lot of it is modeling it in ourselves and then just like planting the seed of, I'm here if you want to talk about this. This can be difficult. Sometimes we might feel things that are confusing for us, and just keep the door open for the conversation so they feel safe.
I was going to say, you're talking about transitions, though. I mean, this could even be emotions and things that arise during transitions from one level to the next, from pre-team to team,
Yeah.
from one gym to another gym. Like this, just any transitions, this kind of plays a role.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's not about not having the emotion. I know like I had amazing coaches and I know that they probably would have done some things differently too, but there were times in the gym when I would get really emotional and they'd be like, learn to control your emotions, control your emotions. That's not what I'm saying, because I don't think that that's really emotional intelligence, is like having to suppress or control tightly. how do we relate to them? How do we have a conversation around them? How do we normalize them, embrace them? Because it's in shifting that relationship to it that it doesn't overwhelm us and it can inform us, if that makes sense. So maybe you have other emotions that you would add to the list, but I just really want to drive home the point of how do we embrace these emotions and use them for personal growth, even growth as an athlete, so that, it's not a hindrance to them. And so first and foremost, I think supporting our athletes, it comes to education and raising awareness. So thank you guys for being here, because the parents and the coaches really need to be aware of the ultimate transition out and everything in between, like everything you guys are going through now, these transitions that are pretty monumental. We can talk about it, and it takes courage to talk about it. Kids don't always want to talk about it. And so again, leaving the door open. And I talk about nurturing healthy patterns throughout the life of the athlete. And I guess that the analogy that I had in my head the other day was imagining this massive oak tree that's like in the middle, and that's what your goal is at that time. Like, this is gymnastics or this is dance, and so many of your resources and so much of your energy is this oak tree that you are growing and growing and growing. And that is beautiful. And along the way, you're planting these seeds, like you're nurturing a garden around the oak tree, because at some point the oak tree is going to die. You grieve the process, and you have these other seeds that have been planted and nurtured around it for when that primary central focus isn't there anymore. So it's planting the seeds, it's nurturing it along the pathway, and talking about it. Yeah, so educating everybody along the way, coaches, parents, athletes, judges, support networks, everybody involved needs to kind of know the language about this and keep it safe. I think there just needs to be a safety to talk about this stuff. So any other comments, or before we do this practice together? We're good. Okay, so as a mindfulness teacher, if you've ever practiced mindfulness, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, mindfulness is an intentional attention that is in the present moment, and it's free of judgment. So anything we do can be done mindfully. So we can start with the basics of just one breath. So how do we become mindful of the breath? One, we intentionally bring our attention to it. We feel it in this moment, and we become curious. So I like to say, instead of judgment, we bring curiosity. Judgment is pretty rampant within the sports of gymnastics and cheer. And so, again, that's not going away, but how can we bring in the buffer of curiosity? And then I always teach compassion alongside mindfulness. So mindfulness is the ability to be present, free of judgment. And then compassion is this desire to alleviate suffering. And I don't know if you've ever read Kristen Neff's work, Tara Brach. They talk a lot about self-compassion and how self-compassion breeds immense resilience. And I think if I would have heard this as an athlete, I would have been like, heck no, that's going to make me soft. Compassion, no way. But I know better now. And I know that these tools and practices actually make us stronger and more resilient, more emotionally mature, I guess, more emotionally intelligent, and we're able to do more in our sport. So this practice of RAIN brings in mindfulness and compassion. And if you're open to it, I would like to just guide us through just a couple minutes of the practice. So RAIN, it's a 4-step process, and we're going to do it with an emotion. So just keep an open mind, and we're just going to experiment here. So the R of RAIN is recognizing. Can I recognize what this emotion is, and maybe just put a name to it, or just say, okay, this is anxiety, or this is fear, or this is confusion. And then the A of RAIN is allow. Okay, yes, this belongs. I'm not going to try to fight it right now. I'm just going to be with it. The eye of rain is investigation. So this is the curiosity part where it's not an investigation where we're trying to figure it out. We're not saying like, why am I feeling so afraid? I shouldn't feel afraid. Oh, it's because she told me. No, we're not trying to figure it out or solve anything. We're just getting curious about how it feels in our bodies. So, okay, this is fear. I give it a little bit of space. Oh, I notice that it's in my throat, or I notice my heart pounding, or I notice my belly is tightening. So we're just getting really curious about how this emotion is in our bodies. And then the nurture part is compassion. So once we've been mindful with our experience, we can ask ourselves, what do I need? Like, if the most vulnerable part of this could speak, what would it ask for? And this is something we can do with ourselves. We can do it in relation to our children, and we can do it with our athletes and children. So we teach them this because I think it's a pretty straightforward process that most kids could probably do. It might just take a little bit of practice together. So let's just do a couple minute practice together. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can do that. Otherwise, we just kind of soften the gaze and allow your body to come into a posture that feels both awake and alert and also has a quality of ease. And taking a couple of slow cleansing breaths where we breathe in through the nose, breathing out through the mouth, a nice, long, slow exhale. And I want you to connect with an emotion that you've been feeling lately, or even something you're feeling right now that has been somewhat challenging. If it helps, you can bring to mind the situation that elicits the emotion. And we start with the R of rain and just simply recognizing, okay, this emotion is fear, anger, confusion. Fill in the blank. And the A of rain is allowing. Can I be with this? Sometimes a mental whisper of, yes, this belongs. We don't have to like it. It's just giving space for this emotion to be here now. And the I of rain is investigation. We're just becoming curious. How does this emotion feel in my body? How does this emotion feel in the body? We might even become curious. Are there any thoughts that accompany this emotion? Are there any stories or beliefs? Does this emotion feel new or is it familiar? Just bringing this as kind curiosity, just getting to know this emotion a little bit. And as we're connecting mindfully with the emotion, we might begin to ask, what do I need to feel supported? And you can really get curious with the N of rain, the nurture. Sometimes a simple gesture, such as a hand on the heart. Maybe it's a mantra of I've got my own back. This belongs. You can bring in nature, a pet, anything you need to feel supported in this, allowing this emotion to feel supported. Maybe asking if the most vulnerable part of this could speak, what would it ask for? Noticing what arises, and might take a couple more slow cleansing breaths, knowing that we can return to this practice anytime we need it. You can open your eyes if your eyes were closed. And so I'm curious if anybody wants to share, what was that like for you? This practice can really create space for those emotions. It can be validating. It breeds understanding. So if anybody wants to share what came up for you, or if you think maybe you could use this with your kids, I would love to know that.
You guys are welcome to unmute.
And if anything comes up, we can pause, but I'll keep going.
I was
So
going
that,
to say,
oh, sure.
well, I can just share really quick. So for me,
Yeah.
I really needed that today, Teresa.
Oh, it's
So
good to
thank
know.
you. I did. My grandmother is on her last days, and I got to say goodbye to her yesterday. So I had the last couple days with her, and driving and in between other work events and etc. And I found myself taking time yesterday, but grief is it's a tough emotion, and it's one that doesn't resolve quickly, I've found. It's one that takes some time and nurturing, and it's been hard because I don't know, parents can maybe attest to this, where we have big emotions and big things that are just life events, be it work, be it family stuff, be it a loss, whatever it is. We have these big events, and the show must go on if you're a mom. I'm a single mom, so I literally, my daughter was very, I asked her if she wanted to go and see grandma, and she had already said her goodbye, and we said goodbye over the phone, and we went through her big emotions, and we will continue to go through her big emotions. But she made the choice to not come with me. She didn't want to, which I totally understand. And so, when I got back home last night from driving, it was a late night. She met me here. Her dad dropped her, and the moment I opened my door to the car, she came running. Mom, I need, right? And so it began, right? Because tomorrow's sixth grade school. She needed something. She was also hungry. There was this, and I've been gone for almost a week because I flew in and literally drove. I was supposed to reset the weekend. That was my reset weekend, or reset like a couple days. And instead I drove and canceled my work and did all these things, right? So I'm guessing there are moms and also coaches who are moms here who can relate to wanting this space to process something big. And sometimes the show must go on. So it's this idea, and when I say the show, it's not a show. It's like it's just my role. It's my duty as a
Right.
mom, right? I have to feed her. I have to get the things she needs for school tomorrow morning. So I literally dropped my luggage. She goes, "Can I help?" I said, "That would be wonderful." So she took my luggage in, which was wonderful. I said, "Can you just, vacuum my workspace for tomorrow? That would be wonderful while I go to the store." And she did. She's a wonderful kid. But, I didn't get to sit down. I had to go and get because it was late. It was not an easy, quick turnaround. So I think hopefully I'm relating that other parents, that there can be all these different emotions and big shifts, but as a parent, it's sometimes, especially as a mom, it's just the job and duty never stops, and it depends on what age you have, whether they sleep through the night or not. But, and so it can be challenging. I love this little, I spent time in the car before I drove home, which was part of the reason I was a little later. But I needed that space to have, these big emotions. And, but I love this technique because it is so simple. And like you just said, you can dive in and come back out and then come back in,
Mhm.
because I know that for me, I've had losses before, so I know grief is not gone,
Yeah.
like I know that this is a process. And so, yeah, I just want to say, as parents, I think that this is great and that Teresa's giving us a great tool because um, we need this too. Like our athletes are co-regulating from us a
Yeah,
lot. And
exactly.
so Jasmine says, I can relate to that so much. And then Katie's saying 100%. So I'm glad you guys are here. And Teresa, I'm really glad for the technique today because I did need it. Even at this moment, I had a little tear come in and I was like, now's not the time to completely, you know, let it all, but it was just a beautiful space to just release. So Peter Levine in somatic experiencing talks about like, if we just, all this trauma and stuff goes inside and we have the glass jar, we put the lid on it, we just tighten it all the way up. One day we just keep putting stuff in and it just explodes, right? So I kind of feel like, and he talks about part of somatic experiencing is this idea of just releasing a little bit of the valve. So I feel like I just released a little bit of the valve. And what was interesting is what I found, because I do live mindfully and I work different practices, etc. But what I found was with this morning was that I didn't even realize I felt like I'd had this good release and I had done some things and I did some self-care stuff for myself after my daughter went to bed and but I didn't realize it's still carry like there I think the old habits of gymnastics of it learning like even in school they teach our kids not to listen to their bodies, like you can't go to the bathroom when you ask to go to the bathroom or get water when you want water, like that's and even at gym it's the same thing. It's like so I think I didn't realize that that after 20 something years is a big behavioral program, right? So I guess
Yeah.
it was interesting because even though I'm practicing these mindful things and I was doing mindful things, I actually didn't realize that there was some ready to bubble over, you know? And so that practice, just practicing it, took a moment to let off a little bit of it. And I'm like, okay, I can do a couple more clients after this, and I can do, you
Good.
know, it's really wonderful. So thank you for sharing that beautiful practice.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I think it's a great thing you can do in a deeper meditation, or we kind of did it as I call it a light rain, where it's just like in the moment. And I think I use it a lot as a parent, just like, okay, let me bring this back to me, recognize anger, or like frustration, overwhelm. And then sometimes it is just like, okay, hand on the heart, or okay, this is hard. May I be free of suffering, just something that's really kind to yourself. Like what you said, our kids and our athletes co-regulate off of us. So it's so essential that we have the tools to keep ourselves going to further support them. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And then, yeah, just in terms of navigating the transitions, the supportive tribe is so incredibly essential. And I don't ever think I valued this enough as an athlete. Maybe I took it for granted of like, I'm just so close with my teammates, but I had a couple that I was very close with. But nurturing that in our kids and really helping them to know, wow, you're such a good friend, you're such a good teammate, you're such a good person, and that nurturing their friendships is going to help them through this as well. And then the healthy boundaries. I think that's important too, is we keep our hearts open and we also know there might be people in our sphere that don't understand the transition, or they project judgment or blame. And those are the experiences or the relationships that we have to say, okay, this isn't helpful for me. I just have to put up a healthy boundary. So it's allowing in the love and support, and then knowing the ones that maybe are toxic for us or just aren't helpful. And it can come in lots of different forms: our support network, the friends, family, partners, spouses, teammates, fans. Draw on it all. This community here, this is beautiful. And then on occasion, there is professional support that is needed. So psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists. And I tend to have a bias towards finding somebody who is holistic, to look at the whole person, because we can get very myopic in our view of, okay, how do we deal with this transition from life after sport or transition between sports, instead of, okay, physiologically, what's going on, mentally, what's going on, emotionally, and then looking at the whole person as we are addressing these kinds of issues. So, and then if you don't mind me sharing my book, I interviewed 10 Olympians, and I share my own story in it as an Olympic alternate, because we talk a lot about the holistic approach to health as an athlete. And all the athletes in this book are about 10, 20, or even 30 years removed from their gymnastics career. So there's that hindsight's 2020 view where there's a lot of wisdom, where it's kind of like, I wish I knew then what I know now. And so my mom read it and was like, I wish I would have had this. And then I had a coach read it and said, oh, this is great for coaches, because it gives you, one, just that appreciation for the quest for greatness, which again, I think is an honor, and it's something that is beautiful if we have that opportunity. And then it's also a responsibility to really know how to nurture the person beyond the athlete. So feel free to email me as well. I would love to stay connected, and I can open up for questions. Wow, that was a fast hour. We're already almost at the hour.
Yeah, you did great. You timed it really well.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Um, do you work with individual athletes and families?
I do, yeah. Yep, I do.
And the best way for them to get a contact with you, will you drop your email into the chat as well? And also your Instagram. So your Instagram is, remind me, I'm drawing a blank right now.
It's my.mindful.medicine. So I'll put my email in here. I'm not putting a typo. At my.mindful.medicine.
And the name of the book is Behind the Chalk Box? No,
Um,
no.
Beyond the
Beyond. My brain was
chalk
like
box.
having a little bit, yeah, Beyond the Chalk Box. I was
Yeah.
gonna drop the Amazon link in there for them. There it
Oh,
is.
awesome.
Beyond the Chalk Box. Yeah. I'll drop the Amazon link in the chat for you guys. I'm just gonna go ahead and add that to my cart while I'm here.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Anyone have some more questions for Teresa? So I dropped the link in, and the best place to find her for those who are listening on live on YouTube is you can email her Teresa at mymindfulmedicine.com, and then her Instagram is at my_mindful_medicine, for those who are listening live. Anyone have some more thoughts or comments or questions?
Oh,
Jasmine says thanks for that. She said she just followed you on Instagram. Yeah.
perfect.
Did anyone learn something today that they find helpful for themselves and for their athletes? They want to share? I know I found it helpful.
Oh, good.
I'm
I
definitely
think the
gonna.
biggest thing that I took away is I started doing mindfulness practices with my own mental health journey through the Peloton app a couple years ago.
Mhm.
And so I always thought it was like an adult thing because you had to have like the mature mind to be able to do it. But I do think I'm gonna try Peyton on this because I think it will help her in kind of recognizing her self-worth.
Yes.
It's going to take some coaching because she's ADD like me, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I the way you put it into perspective, like what their own battles and stuff are, I think is made me realize I should try that with her and it may help. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for all the information you've given us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. It was
Now
really a
you
pleasure.
you guys both have young kids. And so one thing that I've done with my daughter, and I just picked one randomly off of Amazon, but I had this other one. But one thing, oh, I just put it to Jasmine directly. Sorry, let me do that to everyone. Paste. Um, so I just sent it to everybody, the link for, yeah. Um, so what I was gonna say is one thing that I did, so part of this like recognizing emotions and helping to grow emotional intelligence with young kids is we had emotional magnets on our fridge. And so when big emotions came, we could go to those emotional magnets and I'd say, which one is it? There's different like ones for kids. There can be like the pictures, there can be little stick figures, there can also be colors. Some people like there are like these ways with little kids where you can put a color to their emotion. Like I'm just red. And for most people, that's like anger, and
Yeah.
and so you might could have pictures. I just dropped one on the Amazon for the little ones because you guys both have younger kids. And I found that helpful in kind of growing her intelligence because now she's 11. And like, I thought this was just amazing last night because she knew that this is like, I was telling her I'm having really big emotions. I'm having a really hard day. It's just been really big emotions. And she said to me, and she goes, Mom, come here. You need a hug. And I said, I do. Thank you. And she said, what can I do for you? And I was like,
Wow.
I wish there was something you could do, right? Like in reality, there's not anything she can do for the grief, right? But I was like, we kind of talked a little bit more in a little more detail. And I said, actually, you can help me with the house. I've been gone for like 7 days straight. And then I was supposed to be home to do these things, but like, we don't have stuff in the fridge. We had to go straight to school. Like we don't have the kitchen's a mess. Like my workspace was a mess. So I was like, actually, if tomorrow when you come home from school, if you could help me, clean up the kitchen a little bit and put the dishes away. I can put the dirty ones away later, but like just to help offload some of the stresses of the things that have to happen in order for us to function, like cook food and eat, etc. Um, I was like, actually, you can't do anything about my grief, which she knew that, like she knew that, other than giving me a hug. But on the other side of it, she offered this, she beautifully offered to help. And she said, okay, I can do that when I come home from school. I'll do this thing. And so I guess I'm saying that for the parents who are having the little ones, because it didn't start with that. Like she has the ability to understand I'm having a big emotion, and whether she does understand grief now because we have lost my mom and we've had other deaths in the family, but like and she's also missing my grandmother as well, her Gigi. But that being said, is that we didn't start there. It started with some of these little mindful tools, exactly like Teresa's. So the tool I don't think has to change at all. But like some of you guys were talking about, like, they're little, like how do we identify the emotion? And if you kind of stick with the core emotions, because really frustration is anger and annoyance is anger. So if you just stick with like the core emotions and use some kind of simple, now the one I dropped in there had multiple things. So when Allie was like 3 or 4, I think she was like, no, she was 2 and a half, two. She was 2 when we started this because we had some big transitions in our life. But like what we did is we just pulled out the 4 big ones and I left the other ones in the little box. And then as she got older, we started, it's kind of like Inside Out where like
I
more
was just
emotions,
thinking of that.
I know,
Yes.
more emotions
Just
came to the
thinking of that.
console. So like we just hit 6th grade. So I'm thinking of this Inside Out too. Like I'm like, oh, what emotions are coming to because like like it's all coming. And it is funny because I'm seeing the upgrade of the console happening live action. Like it's like, so it's like you have to pull out more of those as they grow. So you're kind of evolving and growing with them. So,
Yeah.
but I think, because I found mindfulness when Allie was really little. She was right around 2. And so I think as I mimicked it and started trying to practice it, like Teresa was saying, and then I began to bring in little, like I was like, when I was her age, and even her age now, she's way more emotionally intelligent than I was as a kid. Like
Mhm.
I wasn't allowed to have feelings between gymnastics and home. Like it was like not a non-existent thing. So like I remember as an adult kind of coming to a point, I was probably in my 30s when I first was like, I got my first emotional box and I bought the kids version. There's actually a company called the Emotional Magnet Box, and I couldn't find the link right now. They've changed companies anyways, but the box still exists. They had a kids version and adult version, and the adult version had 100 different emotions. And I was so overwhelmed that I was like, I'm ordering the kids version. So
Start
because
where we're at.
yeah, I was like, I have no bandwidth for this, right? So anyways, but so for me, because I had already started that journey when she was born and kind of old enough to start to work on these things, like around 2 or so, we began to bring in kind of just the basic core emotions and having visuals of them on the fridge. And also there's also you can also do like they have a there's one that's very simple that has like the core like 4 or 6 emotions, and they have like a little arrow that they can move. And so you can say, what are you feeling right now, and they move it. And I've been noticing that there are several gyms, that now have emotional like corners, right? So it's like they call it their calm down corner or their emotional center, and they have maybe a little poster with different emotions, and then they have the how to talk to each other, part where it's like, I'm feeling when, like, and just helping to give a way of talking about it. And then Lisa Mitchell has a bunch of the Zen
Yeah.
Tiger Mind has the whole mats that also helps to take the mindfulness to another level. But when you're dealing with the really young ones, I find like having some kind of image that they can come to, because they'll look at the image and they'll go, yeah, that's how I feel. Like,
Yeah, that's a
so,
great
and then you
idea.
can use, so that can be a part of your rain though, for the little guys, was like, you can use some of these images so that they can recognize it. Cause, and then help them, like, I think, it's a great technique of helping them. What do you need? Like, what
Mhm.
do you need? That's the reason my daughter asked me that question. How can I help? What do you need?
Yeah,
Because I've asked her that, and she's had teachers
compassion.
ask her that, because we've, had some early on teachers that have been working on this with her early on. So
Sounds
anyways, I hope that helps Jasmine and Katie with the little ones, because this technique of rain is really, really helpful. Yeah, so yeah, tell them about Insight Timer. Go ahead. That's also a really good one.
because I saw somebody put, I needed this maybe more for myself than for
Yeah.
her. I think, yeah, like putting on her own oxygen mask first. I am a teacher on Insight Timer. And so if you want new meditations, I have a lot for chronic illness because that's one thing that I deal with. But there's also a lot for like anxiety, stress, overwhelm, loving kindness. And so if you just ever need a reset, I think guided practices are nice because you can you don't have to take on the onus of guiding yourself. You can just kind of sit back and let somebody else do it for you. So feel free to check that out. They're all free. So
I love it. I love that you have an Insight Timer. That's so great, Teresa. Yeah,
yeah.
I think you also brought up a really good point about putting the oxygen mask on us first, and back to that co-regulation and stuff. As a parent, it's I do think, and you also mentioned it earlier as well about modeling for them, right?
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean modeling being perfect. I'm just going to say that part. I actually think
Yes.
it's really important to model that we cry, or model that we get angry, and then model how we self-regulate from there. Whether it's I get on an insight timer, whether I go for a walk, whether, I take a moment to breathe, whether I remove myself because I'm so frustrated. I'm like, I'm going to say something I don't want to say. Like, but
Yes.
not removing out of like removing love, but like, I just need a moment. Like, give me some space. Like, let me get myself, I'm really angry. Let me take a moment. Like, it may just be
Yeah.
very simple. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's what I was thinking too, is like, I'm not talking about these emotions as something like if you're struggling, it's a bad thing. It's like, no, this is an opportunity to learn about ourselves and to feel deeply. And, I think I used to think that it was about being perfect in a way of like, oh, if I'm really mindful, it means that I'm showing up with perfect equanimity all the time. When it's really like, we're not perfecting ourselves, we're perfecting our love, and we're perfecting love for ourselves and our children. And so I try to remember that too. It's like, how do I perfect my love? And it has to start with ourselves as parents and coaches, and then we can give it a little bit more easily, maybe.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Teresa, for coming. We
Yeah,
really
thank you
appreciate
for
you being
having
here.
me. It's a great
Yeah.
conversation.
Oh, yeah. And it needs to be had more. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's just all of us, and I think being at what I love about the modeling idea too is that when you're modeling it, let's say on the fly. So I taught kinder, first and second grade gymnastics at an outdoor school during COVID. So right after they had been locked down for 4.5 months, Texas was not as long as other places. They came back and they were like, can you, like this was kind of where we landed when things started opening up. And so they were like, you do gymnastics. Oh, could you come? And like, it's like a cooperative type thing, right? And so I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll come do gymnastics. I had no idea what I was getting into. The like dysregulation from being like, I mean, I knew, but I didn't know what it was going to look like for real. And so it was a for real thing. And it was a great time to practice as a coach, recognizing that I was getting angry or frustrated or annoyed or like, and then instead of like yelling over them, trying to get them to stop running around and being crazy madhouse kids who were being super unsafe, right? Like they were not safe. That was the problem. And and so it was a moment where it was like, I just need to take a golden lotus breath, which is a meditation that I use. And so I just taught all of them. I said, we're all doing it together. Everybody just stop where you are. Like, and we just like,
I
and
love
so we
it.
would breathe together. We would take a pause together. We would all go in time in or out, however you want to call it, together. Like,
Yeah.
and I would put myself in with them. And I found that towards the end, of teaching all that, they really learned a lot of, and that school was really much about emotional intelligence. Matter of fact, that whole year during COVID, because things were still really whatever. The goal was just the only reason I put her in the school is I just want social emotional intelligence. Like that's all I want. I don't care about learning this year. Like, the world is going to wherever we're going. Like I was just like, I just want that. And we'll figure out the learning later, if we can just have regulation, right? And interactions with peers and stuff. And so
Yeah.
it was really interesting because I learned a lot that year. Like I learned a lot in how to. So I guess the point I'm trying to say is that like this rain or whatever mindful practice we have, or acknowledging that we have an emotion, and then whatever the tool is to get back down, doing it in front of the athletes instead of being like, I'm just going to go to the office, like instead of kind of removing self from it, getting to watch you experience the process of you calming down, or the process of you being pulled. Like another thing as a coach, like I remember just being pulled, have athletes here, but then some other coach would need me to look at something at another athlete on another event, and so you're like managing multiple events at the same time. I mean, I was just at a gym this last weekend, and I was in charge of a group, and then someone was wanting me to like watch another class to see to give feedback on or whatever. And I finally just said, like, I cannot do that. Like I was like, we will have to come back and have me do that separately, because I'm giving both of them injustice. Like, and I said it pretty early on, because I was just like, I can't. So it's a matter. So, but I said that kind of in front of, and very kindly in front of other people, which modeled good boundaries.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
I I want to do a good job at what I'm here for, and I can't do a good job at both places. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do my event, and then
Yeah.
the other, coach who had some questions could come and talk to me later. Y'all can send me videos later. Like I would love to see how the program's running. But yeah, so I think like the ability to model, whether it's good boundaries, model self-regulation, model managing stress, like whatever it is in front of our athletes, instead of hiding it, like I think it's much healthier. I don't know. What is your
Yeah.
experience or thought on that?
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah. I'm all about modeling that behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of planting the seed, of, oh, I'm seeing my parent or my coach do this and I'm seeing the effect of it. And even if I don't fully understand what's going on, it's planting that seed. And then the more they see it, the more you talk about it, it's watering that seed. And this is what I'm talking about of like the garden that we're growing as they're being raised as an athlete. Even if the central focus is that oak tree, like we're nurturing all these other things. So yeah, I totally agree.
I love it. I think sport's such a great opportunity to do all that.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, Teresa, for joining us. I've
Yeah,
been
thank
really busy
you.
and I really appreciate you. And you guys follow her on Instagram. She's again, we'll repeat for those of you that were on YouTube, etc. Oh gosh, I lost the thread. Hold on. She's at my.mindful.medicine on Instagram, and you can always email her at Teresa at mymindfulmedicine.com. So thank you so much for coming in and have a beautiful rest of your week, Teresa.
Thank you. You too.
Everyone.
Bye,
And that
everyone.
next
Thank
week,
you.
we do have someone else coming in next week. Next week we have Coach Levi. For those of you who, I believe, hold on, let me check before I speak up too much. Blueprint, schedule, check. I believe, where are we at? Yeah, we have Coach Levi, and he's going to come in and do a parent and coach guide to managing extreme fear with tumbling, part 2. So many of you guys loved what he said last time. He loves the word manage. So he's very much acknowledging like that. So some of this stuff Teresa's talked with will come into play as well. Yeah, Jasmine said love him. Yeah, come on in. He'll be here next week. You have to register again. All right, you guys have a great rest of your week, and thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, Teresa.
Bye. Thanks, Brandi. Thank you.
Bye.